for the
Mm-hmm.
therapist name, what's coming up for them in the moment. But yeah, if a therapist is just, if you offer a criticism to a therapist and they're like, well, I mean, I don't know why you would even say that. I wasn't even trying to, gives you any of that shit. Yeah. Like maybe give another chance and then terminate.
Yeah, and remember, like, we work for you.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
don't work for us. We work for you, and it's a humble pleasure to be able to do that. And if we ever get that inverted or twisted around, please feel free to remind us of it because that's how the market should work. If we're crappy at our jobs, like I tell this to people in public. I used to be chair of my licensing board until just recently, so I give presentations about laws and ethics and stuff. And I tell people, I'm like, good therapy is not illegal. I'm sorry, bad therapy is not illegal. Um,
Yeah.
if you act unethically, it can be illegal, and we can sanction you for that. But bad therapy is not illegal. Bad therapy will drive a person out of the market, though, so that they don't get to give bad therapy anymore. So don't keep handing over your money. Don't keep letting them bill your insurance company if they're doing something that is not working for you, especially if they're being defensive and rude. I mean, never tolerate that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're spot on there.
Hey, so there's one last thing I wanted to chat with you about that I've only listened to maybe 4 or 5 of your episodes, but every one of your episodes, you interview somebody about how they got into the field. And
Hmm.
I want you to give us a little version of what brought you into the field initially, because you and I were chatting offline ahead of time. And just for the listening audience too, if you're listening, you're like, oh man, I'd like to do a podcast someday, but it sounds like you have to know a lot. It turns out we don't. And one of the mistakes that I like to point out sometimes in the spirit of transparency and almost giving permission to people to go do this and make mistakes is that when Mel and I were talking earlier, we were talking, we got to know each other a little bit. We started recording, and about 10 minutes into the recording, I looked at my computer and it was lagging so far behind that I didn't think it was recording, and sure enough, it wasn't. And so we had to redo the whole thing. So
Yep.
this is part of the original recording, but tell people how you got into the field because I think it's interesting. I think people have lots of paths, and another, I guess, permission I'd like to give people, if I may do so, is that if you think you're like in a career and you're like, oh man, I'm contemplating leaving my career, but I'm not sure I can do it for all the reasons we listed off before, expense, all that stuff. Here's a possibility for you. So go ahead and tell them how you got into this field.
Yeah. So you mean the mental health field or the podcast field or both?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll start with the mental health field because that came first. I never really thought I wanted to be a therapist or a counselor when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, anything like that. I did have that thing that I think a lot of counselors have where people always told me I was a good listener, blah, blah, blah,
Oh
whatever.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, and so, but what I did want to do actually was be a teacher. And that was kind of the idea that I had ending high school, going through college, and I was like, yeah, this is what I really want to do. I studied abroad the year before I graduated. And then after I graduated undergrad, I went back to that country, which is the country of Chile, and I taught English for a year. I hated it. I really hated it. It was frustrating. There was nothing about actually teaching that I liked. But what I did like was getting to know my students because I was teaching at kind of a trade school. So my students were actually adults. And I would get so frustrated with them because they would always skip class or they'd come in late or
How
they'd
dare
talk.
they?
Yeah. And so I, would get so frustrated, but what I tried to do was I tried to get to know them outside of class. And once I got to know a lot of them, it was so much easier for me to understand their behavior and to be patient and to be empathetic to their situations. It actually made my job a lot easier because I wasn't, about to blow my gasket all the time because I was so frustrated. And so throughout that time, I kind of thought, wow, this is really fulfilling to me, like getting to know people, hearing their stories, learning about what makes them who they are, and also learning about how that informs the way that they behave and the choices that they make. And so at that point, I thought, I think I might want to be a counselor or a therapist. And at the time, I was really into the idea of school counseling, that's what I got my master's degree in. I got my master's degree online, by the way. That's something you can do.
Yep. Excellent avenue.
Yeah, Seton Hall University, they have an awesome program. And so I got it remotely, which meant that I could actually move. I moved from California to Texas about a year into my master's program. And wanted to be a school counselor, found out that in Texas, in order to be a school counselor, they make you teach for 2 years, which was something that I didn't know and didn't bother to research before I actually moved to Texas. And so even though I, really liked the school environment and liked working with kids, I decided that I wanted to just go the LPC route because I knew how much I hated teaching, and I really didn't want to have to do that in order to become a school counselor. So that was what kind of routed me into where I am now, and I've worked at a variety of different places with different populations. I've worked at a domestic violence shelter. I've worked at a child advocacy center. I have worked now at sort of a private practice-y agency. And I'm still kind of trying to figure out exactly what I want my long-term career and goals to look like. But I know that I, want to make therapy more accessible. And whatever that'll look like, will be determined.
Open your own agency and become a supervisor of interns and host graduate students.
Yeah,
that's what you should do.
Yeah, that sounds like, I would love to do that. So, and then in terms of the podcast, I am like a voracious listener of podcasts. It's probably my favorite medium. There are so many that I just love so much, and I kind of got it into my head that it'd be fun to do a podcast. And I didn't have any idea for what I actually wanted to talk about. I was just like, oh, no, it's a podcast. And so the next question was like, well, what do I know enough about that people would actually care to listen to me talk about? Which is, there's a Venn diagram there. So, I thought about a lot of different things. I'm a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. I water polo for a long time. I love to read. I love to watch movies. And I kind of thought about all these different possibilities. And then I was like, well, I do probably know more about therapy than I know about anything since I'm a therapist. And so I talked to some friends, I talked to my boyfriend, and sort of conceptualized this idea of this little show with interviews where I just talked to people about therapy and about their experience with it, whether it was good or bad. I would interview people who had been in therapy and also people who are therapists, and sometimes both, because that overlaps quite a bit, and just try to do the work to make therapy less scary. That was ultimately the sort of mission statement that we came up with. I just want to make this something that we feel okay to talk about. It's not scary. It's not weird. You don't have to be, loony or crazy to engage in it. It's something as normal as going to the doctor for a checkup, going to the mechanic to get your car fixed. I just want to make therapy something that is on everybody's mind, that everybody talks about.
I'm really proud of you because that echoes the same line that I've been pushing for a while now, which is make therapy cool, make counseling cool. Yeah. I want people taking selfies in the lobby of Zephyr Wellness and posting them to Instagram with captions that say, get my anxiety treatment on. Just as much as they post their CrossFit videos on Facebook. I think it should be that normal. And I appreciate you doing that. That's awesome. Welcome to the tribe.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm so grateful to have found your podcast. And like I said, I think before we started, it seems like our missions are very much aligned of just hey, let's make this thing that people talk about without apprehension, without feeling the door is shut to them, without feeling like they can't understand it or anything like that. Let's just make this something that's very accessible.
But have you tried therapy?
But have you considered?
But have you considered therapy? Yeah. So that's the name of your podcast, and that's your Instagram. Your Instagram handle is @considertherapy. Her name is Melanie Dyer. She is currently working at Therapy Austin. You can find out more about her by going to therapyaustin.com and just searching the counselors and looking at Melanie if you want her services. They're available to you, and she sounds amazing. She sounds excellent. I think you're, and like no kidding, like not fluffing you at all here. I think you're going to be an amazing supervisor one day because you consider all these angles. I think you're going to be great. I think you definitely should consider becoming a supervisor, and that you have so much practice with different settings, and that you want to bring this like message to the world. I really encourage you to consider opening your own agency, hiring a bunch of people, and that's how you do it. That's how you grow the field. I mean, eventually your own caseload diminishes, but you've got 20 other people you gave the opportunity to practice in an ethical setting. I sense that for you. I could see it in your future, so please consider that.
Thanks. Yeah, no, that's incredibly flattering, and I really appreciate that, and I think that would be a very cool path to take. So I'm hopeful that I can manifest that for myself at some point.
Yeah, definitely. And you will, again, you'll be augmenting the field by showing people that it's not this big spooky thing. Like business ownership's not, it's hard. It's very hard.
Right.
And it's expensive. Don't get me wrong. And it takes a lot of sacrifice, but in the end, the autonomy that you receive because of it is very cool. The liberty is amazing. And what it does is it allows you to go out and do cool things like podcasts, which we obviously need more of. And then go do all the advocacy stuff that you're talking about without worrying about how many client hours you're missing out on with all the meetings that you have to attend, that kind of thing. So thank you very, very much for spending the time. Thank you especially for sacrificing the first half hour with our technical glitch and hanging with me.
So much for having me, and this is my first podcast that I've actually got to be on, so this has been really exciting.
I make a far better guest than a host, so when we reciprocate, I'm going to be dazzling, I promise.
Oh, I can't wait. No, yeah, we will make that happen as soon as possible.
Awesome. Well, thanks to the listening audience. On behalf of the Noggin Notes team and our Zephyr Wellness family, and on behalf of Consider Therapy, or Have You Considered Therapy, we wish you all great mental wellness. Take care.
Bye.